Welcome back to LDB Games. I'm Lord Darth Balls, and this is an exciting Raid Shadow Legends video. They've just released their What's Next in Raid video, the first one this year, and there are some serious changes coming. So let's watch this together, and I'll give you my thoughts and what I think Raid will look like over the next year.
Hey everyone, welcome to the first What's Next in Raid episode of 2023. It's only fitting that we kick the year off with some huge news about what's coming to the game.
Quality of life.
Let's waste no time in getting right into it. First up, let's start with the new PvE content.
Alright, so first, I think Raid does this incredibly well. They are constantly releasing new content into the game. Whether you like it or not is kind of irrelevant because it keeps this game fresh for long-term players. And it could be overwhelming to new players. However, at the end of the day, it gives new players something to strive for. They're always kind of moving the finish line, which means you're never really done playing this game. There's always something else to accomplish and play. So I think it's an excellent part of what Raid does for this game.
We're supercharging some of our familiar dungeon bosses, making for a really tough endgame challenge. Introducing Hard Mode Dungeons. When we say hard mode, we mean hard mode.
Hold on a second.
These aren't just... We say hard mode,
Look at that. Even at stage 1, it's 5 to 6 star gear. I wonder what gets better as you rise through the stages. Like, what are the chances of being a 6 star? It's got to be more than that.
We mean hard mode. These aren't just minor buffs and tweaks. We've really changed up the mechanics and abilities of these bosses, adding devilish new twists to old classics. That's not to say you'll have to change how you approach dungeons entirely. Old stages will remain the same.
I mean, yes, these are the same bosses, but the slight changes they made in the aesthetics, incredible. Definitely, I mean, we all know that Raid's design team is top tier. And I love that they took the same bosses and just made some minor tweaks that had a massive impact on their appearance. I mean, this spider is probably my favorite of the 4.
With these remix dungeons being accessible via 10 extra stages for the Dragon's Lair, Ice Gold.
Which, I mean, 10 extra stages, they're probably going to have another 10 to 15 on top in the future, which is kind of cool. Just, again, plugging more content.
Golem's Peak, Fire Knight's Castle, and Spider's Den. So, let's meet our combatants.
6 stars at stage 1.
These bosses weren't exactly nice to start off with, but a creeping darkness has tainted them.
It's also 20 energy per stage, so got to get some more energy.
Even further, they're tougher, stronger, and more brutal than their regular counterparts. So, bring your A game. Let's start with the noxious dragon, its tainted Hellraiser. Rather than more fire, this malevolent fiend has doubled down on horrific poisons. His mephitic fire skill will apply twice as many poison debuffs as its normal counterpart, Wall of Fire, and it beefs up tainted Hellraiser with a 50% increase attack buff for good measure. Also, his secret skill, Toxic Incineration, will activate all poison debuffs on your champions at once. This caustic
He's now got a poison activator. Now, I don't know if you noticed, the poisons can be resisted, right? Where was that? It was...
Will activate all poison debuffs on your champions at once.
Looks like the caustic
explosion can deal major damage. So be sure to bring someone who can cleanse these poisons from your team. Now, let's take a look at Tainted Clysis and see what new tricks he's hiding up his frozen sleeves. Debilitating Frost will remove all debuffs from Tainted Clysis and decrease your team's turn meter by 30%. Also,
okay, that's kind of like the Iron Twins mechanic, and the Sand Devil, actually, where they self-cleanse at some point, making it harder to keep damage up throughout the fight.
So, he's now utterly immune to...
I think it's crazy that they added the turn meter reduction, too.
Poisons. Makes sense, seeing as he's literally...
So one of the best strategies for the Ice Golem is poison, because it doesn't trigger his big hit. So this is, that's an interesting change.
Made from ice. So how do you defeat something made of ice? You melt it. HP Burn is your friend here. It deals 10% more damage to Tainted Clysis and destroys the max HP of his minions.
Now I wonder if that 10% applies to when the minions take an HP burn tick and it ticks the boss down. I would hope that it does. You never really know.
making it easier to put them back into the ground whenever they get dragged back into the fight. Needless to say, some teams that used to shine in this dungeon will be getting the cold shoulder from Tainted Crisis instead. Be prepared to change your teams accordingly. Next up, the Ice Golem's hot-tempered counterpart, Tainted Fyro, the Fire Knight. If you thought his shield was nasty before, just wait until you see it now. It goes from needing 12 hits to break in stage 25 of normal mode to needing 21 hits in stage...
That's a little unreal. 21 hits? Out of a 5-champion team, you need at least 4 hits from each champion to even get close to taking this shield down.
Stage 10 of hard mode, and that's not even your biggest worry. Attacking Tainted Fyro's shield will destroy your champion's max HP by 1%. Need more HP destruction? His Corrupting Blaze skill also destroys your team's HP by 15% of the damage dealt, meaning whatever he does, your HP is taking a hit. You'll need...
I wonder if the change to that blessing was in anticipation of this mechanic. Because I can see that Miracle Heal being beneficial here, considering it seems to be small amounts of destroyed HP at a time.
You'll need to find a way to counter this, or else Tainted Fyro will be carving through your champions like a hot knife through butter. Oh, and he's immune to turn meter reduction.
That is the core strategy of Fire Knight, is to keep his turn meter down, preventing him to put his shield back up.
Too. Sorry, all you Cold Heart and Allure fans. However, all hope is not lost. Turns out Tainted Fyro just needs to chill out. Okay, using freeze may not literally freeze him, but it will cause him to lose 15% of his turn meter per freeze debuff. Cool. Let's move on to...
Wait a minute. So he doesn't take a freeze, but the act of attempting... So you're landing the freeze, but he's removing it. And it decreases his turn meter. That's interesting. That's pulling freeze into them. It's kind of like what they did with the sleep on the Sand Devil. They're pulling a debuff that doesn't really have much play in the game into the meta of PvE, kind of, at least as it relates to Fire Knight. That's interesting.
Lose 15% of his turn meter per freeze debuff. Cool. Let's move on to our next star, cool. Tainted Scavag, and her endless brood of spiderlings. The changes to her dungeon should send shivers down your spine. First, Tainted Scavag is immune to turn meter reduction and HP burn. We're not kidding.
Again, the primary method of taking down this spider is HP burn with turn meter control. Completely invalidated that.
In fact, if you've got HP burn on her spiderlings, each AP burn activation will now partially heal her.
So it doesn't just void it, it makes it counterproductive. Healing the spider with each HP burn tick. That's insane.
So you'll definitely want to avoid that. Also, her spiderlings are immune to freeze, so that old trick won't save you either.
Wow.
However...
So literally only stun is the way to control them. At maybe sleep. But sleep isn't the best control debuff in the game anyway. Provoke might help. Interesting.
Where one door closes, another one opens. Each time a spiderling dies, Scavag loses a chunk of her HP. So...
Whoa!
A chunk of her HP. So, upping your area of effect...
That's interesting. So, early game Spider, before Scavag builds up an HP pool, the strategy is to wipe the spiderlings out, which means they're basically taking an early game mechanic and bringing it back in the end game. I think that's actually a really cool idea. But it totally changes how you approach this dungeon. Like, completely 180.
Lasting her entire clutch to Kingdom Come is now a viable strategy. Another saving grace is that hard mode spiderlings aren't any tougher than they are on stage 25 of normal.
Okay, I like that.
Mode. So if you can splat them there, you can splat them here. Overall, hard mode dungeons live up to their name, and taking them on is well worth the effort. Along with yielding greater rewards and more event or clan v clan tournament points, hard mode dungeons will also drop mythical artifacts and accessories. Until now, you could
Nice. Hold on, let's
only get mythical artifacts from Hydra battles, but it wasn't exactly an easy location to farm.
And it's only 2 gear sets that you would get mythical gear for.
Once hard mode dungeons go live, you'll get to choose which sets to hunt for and have more ways to earn mythical artifacts.
That's awesome. So people always talk about, adding things into the game to allow harder content to be done. This is something that does that.
And accessories. And trust me, you'll want these mythical goodies to prepare for the challenges we've got cooking this year.
Plug for more content. No surprise there.
Speaking of challenges, we all know that the best thing in life is to crush your enemies, climb the ranks of the arena, and become the best in the world. But until now, you could only test your strength against AI-controlled defense teams, and we know you all dreamed of more than that.
We've kind of known this was coming.
You want to go head-to-head with other players to feel the thrill of real-time PvP and test your skill against opponents as cunning as you are. Now, at last, we can say that dream is becoming reality. Live Arena is coming to Raid.
Let's see what this looks like. I'm pretty hype about this.
We're super excited about it and can't wait to see how Raid's PvP scene will evolve after the feature goes live. We won't go into too much detail today, so consider this an appetizer before a full feature preview video later this year. Live Arena will be available to all players who are level 50 and above.
I actually think that's a decent level. My gut reaction, at least. I'd have to look into it a little bit more, but there's a lot of content that unlocks too early for like what a player can do at that level. I think that's actually a pretty good level to unlock at.
You can queue up for battles several times a day on a set schedule, a necessary
Only 4 times a day. That's interesting.
measure to avoid long wait times in a PvE-focused game like Raid. Once you've queued up, you'll be added to the matchmaking pool, and you'll get matched up against an opponent as soon as possible.
Wonder how they're going to do the matchmaking for this. The execution of this will very heavily will have a great effect on how well this is received. Because we all know that arena matchmaking isn't the greatest. I'm curious at how they're going to match you up in this.
After pairing up with an opponent, the Battle of Wits begins with picking champions.
Level,
During this phase,
points.
both players will pick their champions one by one, building a team of 5. Each player will then get to ban a single enemy champion from the fight.
So if you've watched Hell Hades' video recently where he goes over Summoner Wars Live Arena, which is like a real esport now with commentators and money prizes, and this is what they do. This is exactly what they do. It looks like a carbon copy, but it's definitely an interesting twist to Arena.
And choose their team leader. No doubt some of you more devious players will come up with plenty of mind games for this. Oh, and one thing to mention, you won't be able to use duplicate champions in the higher live arena.
Well, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Arena tiers. Once the teams have been drafted, the battle begins. It won't be all that different as far as core mechanics are concerned, except you're fighting a real human. So be prepared for nasty surprises that the AI could never come up with. All phases in battle will have an overall time limit and a limit on player turns. Should the overall time limit run out, both players will receive a defeated result.
Okay, I think that's awesome because one of the strategies is to have a defensive team that just doesn't die so that you get the win as a defense team and they get a lose on offense. So you actually have to have a team to take down your opponents in this, which I think is very smart.
You're fighting the clock as much as you're fighting your opponents here, so don't try and stall out for the win. On top of the sheer awesomeness of fighting other players in real time, there'll be dedicated live arena quests, new artifacts, a new addition
New artifacts.
to the Great Hall where you can spend your hard-earned...
Whoa! Okay, hold on a second. I think that's a different currency.
A new addition to the...
Yeah, that's a different currency. The real endgame players are probably going to be pissed about that. The ones who have like hundreds of thousands of medals up here, useless. But
Great
I
Hall
do
where you
think
can spend your...
this is really cool because before it was just stats based on affinity. Now it's stats based on specific content in the game. That's a really cool new take on it.
hard-earned live arena crests and other rewards to look forward.
Whoa, ignore defense. It's freaking awesome. Okay, good. There's no arena here. That would be treacherous in the arena, but that is a really cool addition in my opinion.
Or two.
And speed. We don't have speed in the old Affinity one. Ignore defense and speed added in. Wow.
But we'll talk about all that later. Those are the two main features we'll be working on in the near future, but we also have some
More
significant
expensive, too.
quality of life updates coming too.
Expanded multi-battle settings. I wonder what that means. Improved artifact management in multi-battles. That's promising. New artifact and accessory sorting options. I like the sound of that. And improved fragment summons. I bet I know what that is.
First of all, we're going to make separate multi-battle settings for various game modes and even for some individual dungeons.
What does that mean? Separate multi-battle settings for various game modes?
This should
Let's see
make
if
it
they tell
even
us.
easier to customize your farming teams and ensure they don't run into any trouble during their artifact hunts.
That didn't tell us anything. Like what does it do? I want to know.
They're also expanding your artifact selling options in multi-battle mode. Right now, you can only choose what rank of artifacts you want to get rid of, but we're changing it so you can pick which artifacts you want to keep based on the rank, rarity,
Whoa.
type, set, specific substats, or any combination of these.
Okay, that's wild. So if anyone uses RSL Helper, this is one of the reasons people use it, is for the auto sell capability based on specific things. I love that they've paid attention to it and are now implementing it in the game themselves. You wish to keep primary stat by artifact type. This looks pretty insane. And it's going to be, so it'll let you, cool, focus on different sets. Wow. I really like this ad.
These factors.
This has the potential to save quite a bit of time. If you've ever run a 50 multi-battle with super raids, that's 100 pieces of artifact typically that you then have to go through and sell before you close it out so that you don't have an overflow of artifacts that you then got to go through later. Like this has the potential of drastically reducing the amount of time spent in game.
It won't be difficult to set up, and it'll make your farming a lot smoother. We're also adding a new sorting option for artifacts and accessories that'll...
Check this out! I've been waiting for this, because what I've always wanted is to find a piece, like, look for all my triple and quad roll speed pieces, right? Now, it doesn't look like it lets you pick the number of rolls, unless that's what this means. It's total stats. So if you have, like, if let's say you have a helmet and a weapon with the same attack percentage, the weapon will show because it's the total attack. That's interesting. I have to see how this is executed. This looks very promising. Again, saves a tremendous amount of time, both in champion builds and in gear cleansing, which gear cleansing is one of the most time-consuming things in this game. This looks...
allow you to sort your gear by stats. For players with many artifacts, it should help you keep on top of things. Finally, we're going to sort out the chaos that is the Fragment Summons tab. Champions that are currently unavailable by any means will be hidden from the list, unless...
Nice! Finally! People have been talking about this forever.
You've got at least one of their fragments. It's a small...
Okay, so the one of the fragments I'm a little miffed about, right? So if you have 10... say you have 10 fragments, you are never going to be able to collect 100. Like, even when they sell packs, they don't allow you to get 90 fragments. It's like if you have 50 fragments or more, I think that you should be able to turn these in, exchange them for generic fragments, maybe at a reduced rate, but at least be able to exchange them so that they don't just sit there, right? I probably have 5 fragments for like 15 champions. Like, what am I doing with that? Not doing anything with that. Anyway, still a good thing in my opinion. But they can totally do more.
But it'll make navigating fragment summons much easier. And finally, it wouldn't be a
Nice.
What's
I
Next
mean,
video without
obviously.
showing off some awesome
Whoa, is that Thor? That looked like Thor.
What's Next video.
That looks like a little bit like Thor. That's interesting. It looks like a sorcerer of some kind, like a sorcerer warrior. That doesn't look like a weapon. Maybe it's like a hammer. That's pretty cool though.
Video without showing off some awesome new champions in the
Nice. Look at
pipeline.
that weapon.
Many of these fabulous
She
barbarians,
looks badass.
fashionable Ogrins, and their
okay, kind of looks like a really big teddy bear. Just saying.
friends are all but ready to jump in.
Whoa, that looks like a mythical creature. Like a centaur or a something from like Roman or Greek mythology. I like this guy. This guy looks dope.
To the summoning pool and join the fight for Teleria.
Ooh, that's gotta be a Sylvan Watcher right there. That's really cool. Look at those tree branch wings. Wow.
Few are still in the early stages of development, and we need to iron out some new
She looks
mechanics.
clean.
They'll be worth.
Oh, wait, that's more than one. That's two. You think they're gonna do a werewolf faction? That would be dope. Although Brachus. See, and that's the thing, is like there's so many different types of champions and other factions that like it like invalidates some faction ideas. I'm curious about that. These look insane though.
Worth the wait, and we think you guys will love them. And that's it for this episode of What's.
So guys, what do you think? I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited for this update. I think that Raid has put a lot of time into the content that's coming out, and as long as it executes the way it seems in this video, it's only good stuff in the future of Raid. Let me know down in the comments what you think. You think this is good? You think this is bad? What do you think they could even do better? Like, I think the fragment thing could be done a little bit more. That they kind of only did it a little bit, right? And took a tiny little step when they can take a couple strides there, in my opinion. But that's what I got, guys. Really exciting update coming in Raid. If you liked the video, please give me a like, give me a subscribe. And if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. I appreciate your view. And I'll catch you on the next video. Enjoy your Raid.